all know, and I am one part of the Public Allies class of 2014, and I am and will continue to be the program manager and curriculum coordinator at Gabriel's Place in Avondale. And I wanted to come up here and speak to you kind of off the cuff, like Anna, like great speakers can do, but I can't do that. So I'm reading off of the paper, and I hope that's okay with you. I had some lofty ideas for my presentation of learning, but like many lofty ideas, they all kind of fell flat in practice. So I just kind of wrote my story, how I ended up here. And I'm going to share that with you. As those of you who know me know, I'm new to Cincinnati. I grew up not far from here, but I didn't go to Walnut Hills or Withrow, as I admit in a small voice when people ask me which high school I went to, as most Cincinnatians inevitably do. I spent the first 10 years of my life in Deer Park, and my family inched further to the wasteland. I ended up 5 minutes from Kings Island, and I could see the fireworks every night from my front yard, but that was the only spark of life. I was bored out of my mind, so at 18 I moved as far west as the continent allows, trading Midwest cornfields and conservative hang-ups for the mountains, pine trees, swimming holes, and liberal tendencies of Western Oregon, and it suited me. I spent 5 years there, 1 year abroad, and barely looked back. When I was traveling, I claimed proudly that I was from Portland, and it felt like the truth. When I packed up and left this part of the world, I never ever thought I would close the loop and move home to a home I didn't claim. I finished up my undergraduate degree in psychology and no plan. I'm not a planner. I chose instead, perhaps out of naivete, out of intimidation or procrastination, to wait for opportunities to surface naturally. I worked at a Greek restaurant. I had a miserable boss. I traveled a lot and rode my bike and cooked big meals and stayed a long time at the table waiting for my sign to come. Meanwhile, my mother buzzed in my ear, chastising me for not grabbing life by the balls, and I oscillated manically between calm, quiet confidence and totally terrifying post-grad stress syndrome. One lazy summer morning, out of the blue, I got a voicemail from the director of Gabriel's Place. A friend in Cincinnati had passed her my resume when she expressed frustration about her current staff. She had never met me, and she knew I lived 3 time zones away, yet she called. I was flattered. She was probably desperate, and 2 weeks later I was on a plane to Cincinnati, because frankly, what else was I doing? Gabriel's Place is a food access and skills-based nutrition education nonprofit rooted in the neighborhood of Avondale. On a loftier scale, our mission is to reclaim the urban relationships to the earth, to our bodies, and to each other through food. Through my education in psychology, I felt that the discipline lacked a human element, that our mental state and that which we put into our bodies daily are intrinsically linked. This absence of what seems to me to be a common sense in current psychological theory was discouraging. Healthy food, a strong sense of community and connection with nature became for me the keys to a calm and happy life. I realized I would have to work outside of the traditional clinical setting to be true to my values as a healer. As a psychologist, a cook, a nature lover, and holistic health advocate, I fit seamlessly into the fabric of Gabriel's Place. I feel like I ended up there because this work is giving me life, naturally. We work 10-hour days more often than not, and I spend a couple of those hours upstairs doing administrative work because that's what it takes to run an organization. But before noon, I'm in the kitchen, crushing garlic, or in the garden pulling weeds because that's where I feel comfortable and fulfilled. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, we eat in community. Spending time with neighbors over food is what energizes me on 10-hour days. It's why I'm devoted to my work. I tell you this because it justifies what I'm about to say, that outside of being grateful for a paycheck, in the beginning I resented public allies most of the time. I joined the class late in the game. 3 months of Fridays into the program, the allies had formed relationships in a common language around professional development for young people and nonprofits, and I was an outsider. A Friday away from the office meant 1 workday a week separated from building and participating in programming I loved to be a part of right from the get-go. It took me a while to understand why I'm here as a part of this ally class. The program flew by for me, and even as I questioned my participation, I ultimately understood that there's always a reason we find ourselves in our present circumstances. I realized that if Gabriel's Place was the tug on the rope that brought me back to Cincinnati, public allies had become the glue. Over time, as our trainings complemented daily life, I began to familiarize myself with the city, even to appreciate it. In Portland, I took pride in being a student of my place. I was fascinated by the histories of the neighborhoods on the river, the way they were woven together, their secret inequities. I became an informal teacher, telling friends and strangers at the bus stop the stories of places they were coming from or going to. But in Cincinnati, my birthplace, I've always felt on the outside, and I cast a blind eye on a city that seemed to turn away from me. I love learning, so though I started out as a skeptic, I quickly got involved in Friday trainings. I particularly enjoyed learning from local experts, feeding off of their passions. from the transgender advocate to Liz Bloom's asset-based community development. As the web of community leaders, we were exposed to expanded. Cincinnati's potential rolled out before me. Sure. Anna and Megan shared devastating statistics with us about the number of children living in poverty in this city, and humble. I realize that I'm in this place right now because there's work to be done, that other Cincinnatians realize this too, and that they're leading amazing initiatives. Meg Morawski's preschool promise gave me hope that we can attack our city's devastating achievement gap on a scale as of yet unaccomplished in this country, and our fellow ally Mary is a part of it. I found that so inspiring. As much as they demystified Cincinnati, our Fridays together helped me to contextualize my identity here. After a childhood in the stagnant, cultureless void of sameness that is the suburbs, and university in a celebrated city rendered less interesting by privilege, I found myself in the urban core of a city characterized by generational poverty. In principle, totally disgusted by big business, gentrification, and sexism, I was all of a sudden face to face with injustices caused by these urban maladies living downtown. I didn't know how to react to constant harassment walking home from the market. I felt guilty living on the cusp of over the Rhine while families who claimed it as home are displaced. I felt angry to share a block with the Kroger World headquarters while fighting against hunger, obesity, and diabetes in a food desert less than 5 miles up the road. Through hard conversations with allies, I have begun to understand community dynamics in disadvantaged areas, and where I fall according to my identity as a young white woman who has been blessed with education, working for a progressive nonprofit. For the first time, as a member of a diverse learning community, I understand the concept of intersectionality. The gender, race, and class cannot be analyzed separately. That my experience of womanness as a white female, for example, is very different from the experience of an African American female, and that this affects the work that I do in Avondale and the interactions I have with my neighbors on Court Street. My perception of the way I have been perceived by others has always been informed by assumptions created in isolation. And while I'm comfortable analyzing my identity in an academic setting, the difficult conversations we have shared outside of academia are essential to defeating prejudice, because we have come together from disparate backgrounds and we have been patient with each other. We have so much to learn from one another, and I have so much energy and knowledge to contribute to Cincinnati and to Avondale through Gabriel's Place. But I've been an outsider, and I have learned how much I need the support of the allies to understand how to affect change in this city, because our neighborhoods are unique and they are worth getting to know. So I'm honored to have learned this year with all of you. And that's all.